Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. My name is Pastor Jason. I am the Ransom Church's care pastor. And I have the privilege of just praying over us and getting things kicked off. And I'm very excited for this opportunity that we can get together. Part of this is that Ransom Church has been running a ministry for years now called Ransom Recovery, and we really feel like it's a ministry where we need to be to love on people. But we're going to change the name of the ministry. We're going to start calling it Freedom Ministry because our heart's desire is that God wants to set captives free of pain. It doesn't matter how that pain comes, that we are just going to walk alongside people, listen to their story, and just be present with them. I think you can all agree that that's going to be an incredible way for us to love on people for the next years to come. So let's take a moment to go to the Father. Abba, Father, I thank you for this evening, that you have called men and women to come together as an opportunity to even grieve and understand what's going on in our community when it comes to overdosing. Father, I pray for those of us who are grieving the loss of family members from this past year and from the years past, that not only would you give us a hug from heaven right now, but to remind us that this is a battle that we are called into to speak truth to people, to love them where they're at. Father, give us the courage and the strength to do that, and that this time would be used to help train us up to go into that battle. We pray all of this in your Son's holy and blessed name. Amen. Now, I get the best job next, which is to introduce a guy I'd like to say is my friend, but he's also our mayor. So, Mayor Paul, would you come up? And would everybody just give him a great greetings? In fact, I just want to say publicly that I am so grateful for Mayor Paul during this season of COVID and how well he's led this city and led us as churches, and I just want to thank you publicly.
I appreciate that.
All right. Bless you, brother.
Well, good evening. Thanks for letting me be with you guys tonight. Ransom, thanks for hosting us tonight. Appreciate it. And Pastor Jason. If you don't know Pastor Jason, wait till it gets about 40 below. You'll see a guy with a big long beard and a fat bike driving through the snow, and that will be him. So he bikes all over the city, and he's a good man. The topic of addiction and overdose is one of those messy topics that we don't like to talk about. We run away from that topic because you don't want to admit as a city that you have a problem with narcotics or alcoholism or any sort of addiction. But the truth of the matter is we do have a problem here. And I see it on a daily basis, and I don't use that term lightly, literally a daily basis. See the challenges of addiction in our community. And it is a disease. We have to think of it as a disease. It's like any other disease, and it needs treatment, it needs help, it needs people to come alongside the person struggling with that disease. And so we need partners. We need people in our community who are willing to help do this messy work. We need places like Avera Health, and we need programs and fundraising arms like Emily's Hope, and most recently, we're going to rely heavily on a community program called The Link. The Link is going to be a triage center in our community for people that are struggling with addiction and behavioral health, mental health challenges. I get that question a lot where people will come up to me and they'll say, hey, my son or my daughter is struggling with addiction, and where do they go? Where can I send them? Maybe they're just started, but they don't like where it's going. And it's very hard for me to say, you go straight to this place. You go straight to this place. Because it's a spaghetti bowl of services that it's hard to know where to turn, especially for family members. And so the Link Triage Center, which will open in February this year, will be that It's called a triage center because that's where people can start, and then we can get those people connected with the right services. It may be treatment. It may be just education. It may be a mentor. It may be a job opportunity. It may be a variety of things. And so getting Sanford Health, Avera, Minnehaha County, and the city of Sioux Falls to work together for one thing is, it's easier to get the Republicans and Democrats to work together, I think, at times. But we're doing it, and we're bringing those groups together. I'm very proud of that work that the city is doing. And so I just want to say to the families here tonight that have been impacted by overdose, who have lost loved ones, you are noticed. That death is not in vain. That life lives on, and we won't stop with this work. I'm sorry. I keep looking at Angela. Angela's daughter was our nanny for 3 years. I can't believe I'm crying. She was our nanny for 3 years. And so when she overdosed, that was really hard on her family. Still is. We still talk about her. And so when I say her death is not in vain, it's not. This work is advancing. People notice, people care. I'm sorry to be crying. I feel like I'm a fool. I wasn't planning on crying, but it's a tough topic. And so I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the groups that are dealing with this messy issue. The groups that are standing up and are tackling this and are talking about it. And are seeking to make change because we need it. I can tell you that our drug task force with the city and our narcotics numbers are very high again this year. We may see record seizures again this year. We had a huge fentanyl bust recently, which took Emily. Fentanyl is a very dangerous drug. A grain of sand can kill someone, and we had a bust recently of 1,000 doses of fentanyl, and the men and women of our drug task force and our narcotics crimes unit and street crimes unit, our internet crimes division, they are working double time right now. But that's just the enforcement side. We need the treatment and we need the education. Okay, those all have to work together. And so I would be remiss if I just didn't say law enforcement is not just men and women in uniform that you see in a patrol car. They're behind a desk, working the computers, working leads to try and get this poison out of our communities. Because that's where it starts, is getting narcotics out of a community so that the addiction can never even happen. It sounds like a utopian goal. I think it can happen. It can be reached. And so we must continue to support our men and women in law enforcement who are doing that great work in this community. So with that, I just want to thank you. Thank you for being here. My prayers are with your families who have been affected by this. And I will continue to pray for you and continue to support this important work in our city. Thank you.
didn't think I'd come up here trying to hold back tears. Thanks, Paul. Oh, I do. Paul really cares, and I know that. As he said, my daughter Emily was his nanny for about 3 or 4 years before the addiction really started to take hold, and she loved his kids. They were at our house a lot, too, so I got to know them as well. It's hard. I work for Keller News. Most of you probably know that. And I started Emily's Hope after my daughter died on May 16th of 2018. And I wanted to stop anyone from ever being poisoned by fentanyl again. And here we are, 2 years later. And in 2019, we had a record number of overdoses, 71,000, according to the CDC, an all-time high. South Dakota reported the largest spike, at 54% increase in overdose deaths. These balloons that you see here behind me, 107 of them, to represent the 107 overdoses in the Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls area in 2019. The shoes that you saw out front when you came in, 30 of them, 30 empty shoes to represent the number of people we lost to overdose in 2019. And already in 2020, 43 people have overdosed. 12 people have died so far this year in Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls area. You don't have to be someone suffering from substance use disorder to have this happen to you. It can just be a one-time bad choice that you make. It could just be a kid trying something for the first time. With the fentanyl out there, we got to get a grip on this. I mean, we have to stop it from coming into our country. We have to stop kids from ever even trying it, ever even getting any kind of illegal drug, because it's in everything. And some Sioux Falls families found that out recently in the most unfortunate way. And their story represents the danger of these illegal drugs on the market. If we could show that story right now.
Tanner's 27-year-old brother Tyler also overdosed and was saved by Narcan. In tonight's Eye on Keller, Angela Kennecke has the story of how one night of partying and a bad decision has left a wave of pain and loss in its wake.
What's your name?
Josh.
Josh what?
The mullet man.
Anyone who knew Josh knew him for his mullet. He rocked the mullet.
23-year-old Josh Steinfurth loved hunting, fishing, and enduro car racing, just like his dad.
Just all the light that he shined on people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
He was always
there wasn't
smiling.
anywhere he went that people didn't like him, or all of his goodness.
His love of life.
Thank you, Daddy. We love you, Daddy.
24-year-old Tanner Schultz doted on his 3-year-old daughter, Sophia.
He loved that little girl a lot. And she loved him. She asked her mom the other day, she's like, "Do you miss my daddy? He's up in heaven. He's watching over us."
Josh and Tanner were not only co-workers as drivers for Beal Distributing, they were also good buddies who shared a love of racing. The two, along with Tanner's brother Tyler, went to the races on Friday, August 7th.
Unfortunately, I feel, bad because I usually went out there and I wasn't there that night with him, but just, that's what he loved to do.
The three were drinking, and their parents say they have learned that at one point during the evening, the young men purchased a couple of pills that they believed were prescription opioids and crushed them up and snorted them.
He wasn't into that. It was just a night of partying. They got, and he lost his life over it.
It was out of character for the men because they were routinely drug tested on the job to maintain their truck driver's licenses and hadn't had any issues. When the three didn't show up for a softball game the next day, their friends and family began to worry.
I had a very empty feeling in my stomach.
A friend went to go check on them at Tanner's apartment at 4 o'clock the following Saturday afternoon. He found all three unconscious, performed CPR, and called for help.
That's when I walked in on it, and Just, it was a very tough day. They told me that they're both gone, is what they told me at the door, and they wouldn't let me go any further. So I was freaking out, you know. And then I realized that Tyler was still alive.
Tyler was revived with 2 doses of Narcan. Investigators believe the pills were laced with a synthetic opioid fentanyl, and that's what killed Josh and Tanner.
I thank God that he saved at least one of my sons, because losing one is terrible. I couldn't imagine losing 2.
It's hard dealing, you know, with the loss of Tanner, but now we're dealing with Tyler, which is really tough right now because he's in a really bad place.
He has survivor's guilt. He's like, why did I live?
Not only are these 2 grieving families left dealing with the pain and confusion over how this could happen, all of Josh's and Tanner's co-workers at Beal Distributing are in shock too.
Here on Friday, you joke with them Friday, you catch Snapchats from them on Friday night at the races, and Friday or Saturday afternoon you get the phone call, and like I said, it's just a bad dream that you don't want to go through.
Fellow drivers lined up their beer trucks at both men's funerals.
We've seen lots of support. They drove down Josh's beer truck and another one, so when we went to the cemetery, you know, the beer trucks
Led the way.
These families say as difficult as it is, they are compelled to share the reason behind the loss of their sons so that it can serve as a warning to save another life.
I hear about it on the news, but I'm like, that's never going to happen to me.
I want this word to get out there that any prescription drug is not safe to take. Period. If it's not prescribed by a doctor, and if somebody's got it at a party, you know, off the street, whatever, do not take it.
This doesn't send a message to any of them young kids. Say the next time it's put under their nose or in front of their face or offered it to them, I hope to God they think twice about it.
Yeah,
Thinking, look at what happened to Josh and Tanner.
Josh's family is clinging to the memories of his generosity and their faith. Tanner's mom is focusing on her granddaughter.
Just like her father, blonde hair, blue eyes. She's beautiful. So I got that.
I spoke to the family of some friends of the 37-year-old woman on Saturday. So these people are out there. I mean, there's just too many of them. Now we're going to hear from Kathy Boucher. Kathy contacted me after her son Miles died on May 2nd. I had actually spoken to Miles shortly after Emily died. He wanted to do a story about how he had an overdose from a substance called kratom, which is illegal. And then I heard again from Kathy after his death, and she was brave enough to tell her story to the whole state as well, and she's going to talk about Miles tonight. Please welcome Kathy Boucher.
Well, the first thing that I want to do is read the definition of the word stigma. The definition is a mark of shame or discredit or a stain. Stigma is when someone views you in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristic or personal trait. Social stigma is disapproval, discrimination against a person based on perceivable social characteristics. Basically what it is looking upon somebody badly. And one of the things that we need to do is take away the stigma so that people who are dealing with addiction, recovery, you know, when I was getting ready for this, I know my subject matter pretty good. So having raised Miles and have been part of his, I'll call it a recovery journey for the last 14 years, I know there's so much to be said. And Angela did a beautiful story that gave Miles grace and dignity, and I am so grateful for that. But one of the things that is different from Miles' situation versus Emily's situation, I believe, is that Miles had been an addict deep in his disease for 14 years. And we were trying to figure out how did it happen. And his biological father is an alcoholic, and you know, any one of us in the room can look just 1 or 2 steps away, and they're going to find somebody that is struggling as well. Miles had dual diagnosis, which meant that he had anxiety and depression that went along with it, and that was probably the source of him was trying to self-medicate. And anyway, in high school, he lost 3 grandparents, and then when he was 23, he had a pretty big breakup. And I learned when I was reading through one of his journals that he never knew how to grieve. So when he had all of those losses and he became so sad, that was his way of coping. And so that I do know. I had searched for an event in his life that could have made this, you know, but there wasn't any specific event. Nobody did anything bad to him. He grew up in a loving home. He worked. I don't want to miss anything here, but I had asked some of his friends to tell me about the things that they loved most about him. And they said he was the most polite, sincere, caring, loving, smart, handsome, generous, funny. And not just funny, but belly laugh funny. He was empathetic, and he could feel the pain of others. He was a gifted musician, an awesome guitar player, a retired skateboarder, avid reader. He loved his family, especially his brother. He loved his friends, and he was always willing to help others. I hear stories all the time about how he tried to help people, and he actually found somebody in an overdose situation and called 911 and stayed with him, but he never knew what happened to him. And after Miles's obituary was in the paper, the girlfriend of this young man had reached out and said that Miles had pretty much saved his life. So, and one of the, we've got 14 years of addiction stories, but, and unfortunately, I still am hearing them, even though I lived with it. But there was a young man, Riley, who came over to our house, and he said he didn't know Miles very well, but when he first met him, Miles he loved his guitar, and his favorite band was Rage Against the Machine, hands down, since he was like 11, how that happens. And so anyway, he had his electric guitar, and he had his amp in his room, and he'd just jam away, and Rage Against the Machine just is not my cup of tea. So, but I know he enjoyed it, and he was good at it. Well, Riley said that they were at a outdoor concert, and it was just local bands playing, and the crowd wanted to hear some Rage. And so anyway, they knew Miles knew the music, so they pulled him up on stage. Riley said it was the best memory he has from high school is getting to watch that. And so I thought that was awesome. Miles, there's a lot of different things around Miles's death that it's in the story and can be found on Kello, and it's called "Slipping Through the Cracks." And it's for such a tragic and sad story. I just thank Angela so much for giving it such dignity and grace. So let's see. Miles died of accidental alcohol toxicity. He overdosed on alcohol. But in the time that he was in Rapid City and in the community transition program, he had the community transition program, you basically sleep in the prison and then you get out during the day and look for a job and take care of your business, and then you have a curfew. And while he was there, he found a local drug house. He found the Kratom retailer, got 2 punch cards going. He used meth, he used heroin, he used pills, and he drank very heavily. So he really could have died from any number of things. But it just so happened that it was the alcohol on his final night. Miles had, in the 14 years, had many overdoses. And I think just like probably what happened in Box Elder is he just kind of went for broke. And, you know, he didn't have a lot of hope, but somehow he was always rescued. In December of 2018, he overdosed on Kratom, and we really thought we had lost him. He was in a coma. He'd been in cardiac arrest for 12 to 14 hours. He had the seizures. He was in a coma. And there were medical problems that followed it, but he survived. And I had told Miles, I said, now that is a gift. That's a miracle. You weren't, you know, everybody thought you were going to die. So what will you do with this gift? And so Miles he was real emotional after he had survived it. But what he did was he took his Facebook page and he started writing about addiction and what it was like from him. He referred to it as a fickle bitch, his words. You know, it wasn't anything that he chose. He never, ever would have chose to live a life like that, ever. He tried many times to get out from underneath. But one of the things that we learned when he had the overdose and they did the brain scan, they were able to see the level of brain damage from the years and years of substance abuse. And so it was all in the frontal brain, which does one thing. One is your pleasure receptor that tells you, it was explained to me that that's where you're like, oh, I really like that pizza. I'm just going to keep eating that pizza. And then you've got your reasoning part of your brain that is now damaged. So the pleasure one is the one that strengthens. The one that is the one that gives you reason, saying, no, you can't eat that whole pizza. You can, you know, just eat till you're full or whatever, is damaged. And so you don't have those same boundaries. And so when Miles used, he just used until he dropped. And he has overdosed on heroin, on kratom, on alcohol, on spice, on bath salts, it's endless. He's been hospitalized in, I think, 3 different states or 4 different states and being treated for overdose and trying to navigate a health system when they're out of state and they're over 21, and it's a nightmare. But on May 2nd, his friends came home about 11 o'clock that night, or it was on May 1st they came home, and they found Miles. He was collapsed on the bathroom floor. He wasn't breathing. And his friend, who didn't have faith in the Good Samaritan laws, really struggled with what to do. His friend had been using. He was scared. He just got off parole. There'd been his kids had been in and out of his home because of his drug use. So he opted to try to get Miles to Rapid City, which was the closest hospital. And he didn't have cell phone reception in Box Elder, I need to say that. But I believe there might have been a way that he could have called from his house or from a neighbor, but Anyway, he put Miles in the car and was going to take him to Rapid, and he got cell phone reception at the fire station, and also he had hoped that there'd be somebody there that could help, and but there wasn't, and Miles was taken out of the car and laid on the ground, and he tried CPR one more time and called 911, and then when he saw the lights, he left because he didn't want to get in trouble. And I do not hold his friend responsible in any way, shape, or form. It was two addicts that were trying to hold each other up, and both of them were drowning, and Miles died. And that's just, but we miss him very much. What do I think could have been different? What in the journey do I think could have made a difference for Miles? Connecting. He always did better when he had a connection with who he was working with. So if he was at a halfway house, if there was a counselor that connected with him, he had better success. It is so complicated to get treatment, to get all of the treatment, psychiatric, mental health, behavioral health, medical, housing, if you need assistance to pay for any of this. I mean, the paperwork is horrible. There's a thing called MAUD, which will help you to determine fair market, insurance. Anyway, I've had to help people fill those out before. The stack of paper is that big. You're pulling somebody's coming out of prison, they're transitioning, and they're going, okay, well, you've got a counselor here, you've got group there, you're gonna see this psychiatrist, and you need to have that, that doctor, and you'll have counseling appointments, and we need you to see, go to so many meetings, and then you need to get a full-time job. And for somebody who has anxiety, which was one of Miles's diagnosis, which had escalated with his disease, you get that flutter in your stomach, the flutter goes to your chest, and it gets big and huge, and it doesn't stop. And then it goes to your head, and thoughts just swirl and swirl. I'm going to get in trouble. I won't be able to finish this. What did I say I was going to get done when? And that was Miles's reality, and he just couldn't manage it. Miles had asked to be, he had 3 years left on his sentence, and he wanted to just sit his time out. He needed to get his feet on the ground, and he had left Springfield, and I didn't even show his picture. Anyway, this is what he looked like when he left Springfield. Before he went into Springfield 2.5 years before, he was probably about 50 pounds lighter and had long, stringy hair. He came out so handsome, so healthy. But what I could imagine is if there would have been somebody to help connect the dots. If I'm going to be setting you up with somebody that's going to help you fill out that paperwork, don't send that pile of paperwork. How about, hey, let's just take a few minutes. I'll help you get this done. Just do it. Do you need help with prescriptions? I know of a program. Let me help you. It'll only take a minute. You're going to be seeing this doctor. If you don't mind, why don't we just take a minute? If he's available, we'll talk to him. If not, I'll help you make that appointment. Simple things. And if each one of us in that journey just connected the next dot, there would be fewer questions, there would be fewer people lost. I saw the story about Link, And I was like, that's it. I've been talking about it for years. Can't we have some place where you can go, where somebody will help you to connect the dots and take you where you need to go? And I imagine a treatment center that will incorporate comprehensive long-term residential support, where I'd like to see that everything happens under one roof. And if it doesn't, then they'll help you provide the transportation until you become more independent. Simple. And I know of one place that does it. In Aberdeen, we have one residential program, and they don't, or at the last I knew that they didn't control meds. The clients had the meds. But med distribution is pretty important. You need to have some control over that. But it's got to be done with dignity and respect. An addict carries more shame than you'll ever know for the mistakes that they've made and the things that they've done to themselves and to the people that love them. And so we don't need to give them more of that. The whole cycle of the things that Miles had gone through, I can't tell you how many times we heard, well, we've exhausted all of our resources. We have done our due diligence. It's up to him. And I know that. But there comes a point in the disease where you can't do it by yourself. Or you really do need to have somebody else help show you the way. Face It Together in Aberdeen, has a mentorship program. I wish Miles would have found his way there. He did get some bus passes there once, but in Aberdeen, we don't have many of those things, and which is unfortunate. So, but yeah, I would just like to see a more getting somebody in treatment is difficult, especially if they don't have insurance. And, it's not a one-stop shop. One treatment program cannot take care of the needs of all the people in treatment. Everybody is unique. Everybody has their own diagnosis, and they need to be treated as a whole person. But treatment or prison or incarceration, and then followed by a strong residential program, I think would be key. So, but those are really my thoughts. We miss Miles terribly. He just was such a good soul, and he would, Angela had asked me, what do you miss most? And Miles used to always say, I love you, Mom. Not I love you. I love you, Mom. And he always included Mom. And and then I was looking through his readings, or his writings, and I thought, well, how do I close? And so what I'll do is I'm going to close in Miles's words. And he probably would say something like, peace, love, metal, and breakfast burritos. So anyway, thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Crosby. I'm a social worker here in Sioux Falls, and I have my hands in many things. I also run a SMART recovery group for friends and families, and I'm a mom of 3 children, twin boys, and they're all grown up, and a daughter. And one of my twins, who's here this evening with me visiting, and you'll get to hear him speak in a minute, he has his own journey with addiction, and I'm here right now to share my journey with his addiction as a mom. I'm really nervous. This is awful. Anyway, so I'm going to do it through poetry. It's a medium that I write in quite often, and I think it's the best way to share this piece of my journey. This poem is entitled, This Time, 2017. This time, I anticipated the barrage of insults, the blaming, the pulling on my heartstrings. This time, the electricity raced through me, making my head spin, threatening to overwhelm me, my very soul. Again, this time, I fought to stay grounded, all the while my heart breaking, as if there was any more left to shatter. I have a right to ask for what I want. I have a right to say no to requests or demands I cannot meet. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to be angry at someone I love. I have the right to follow my own values and standards. I have the right not to be responsible for other people's behaviors, actions, feelings, or problems. I have the right not to be responsible for others' behavior, actions, feelings, or problems. I have the right not to be responsible. Not responsible. I have the right. I have the right. I have the right. This time I understand now what I didn't before. Always I have given in to whatever the latest problem is, hooking into the anxiety that is not mine to own, but nevertheless slithers its way into my life. A whirlwind of panic, grief, sadness, anger. I get sucked in. He is good, really, really good at knowing just what buttons to push. The face of that beautiful, funny little boy flashes out of nowhere in my head, and I am done, lost once again to that relentless belief I am supposed to rescue, save, make happy, provide for, wipe the tears, fix the broken. This time, that image of my brown-eyed boy tried to make an appearance. In its place was an image of a grown 28-year-old man. The little boy vanished. He is gone. A little boy that one most polite at preschool. Excuse me, he always prefaced before sharing, the world seen through the eyes of a 4-year-old. This time there was a man who has been given every opportunity to help himself, a man that I am guilty of enabling for many years, an angry man, a very frightened man, asking once again for his mom to ease his anxiety. This time, I changed the dance, having given my power away over and over in order to feel some control, whether he lives or dies. But there is no control. It is merely smoke and mirrors conveniently put there so we may avoid the truth. His choices are his. The feelings engulf me as I struggle with my soul, finally understanding that I do not need to fix people, feel what they feel, make choices as if I can control others' happiness. This time, I take back my power. I am a mother of a son with the disease of addiction, an insidious disease with power to damage everything in its path. A tornado, mixing, whirling, tearing, destroying, breaking hearts, ruining lives, relationships, killing. Why me? Why us? I used to wonder, why not us? This road has been long and hard and relentless. I miss my son, the warm-hearted, kind, creative boy he was. There is nothing that feels purposeful or good in this journey. Heartache, fear, panic, guilt, shame, sorrow. The list is endless, a personal, private, mommy hell. This time I release my long-held belief that my job is to keep him alive. I can't keep him alive, or happy, or sober, or safe, or anything. This is part of my story, the story of my life. It is what it is. I give in to this reality, breathe it in, breathe it out. Accept what is mine, only what is mine. The rest, I release and return to sender with love and consciousness intact. Thank you. And now I am more deeply grateful than I can even put words to introduce to you my son, Cameron Crosby.
My name's Cam. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. I have been dealing with substance abuse and substance issues since I was 13 years old. I've been in and out of treatment centers, in and out of rehabs since 2011. I stand here 31 years old today with 119 days sober. Thank you. Not my longest stint, unfortunately, but grateful to be here. And the best part, I've been told to talk about Narcan and saving lives and things. But first off, I just want to say, this disease, Paul, this needs more men like you who are willing to get vulnerable and cry, because men cry too. We all are allowed to shed tears. And Kathy, while listening to your story, I heard so much of my own and so much grief and so much battle. It's a tough one, and the stigma is what gets us, and the shame is what gets us, and the dual diagnosis. For me, anxiety, OCD, all of those things, wanting to fit in, the connection. Those are all things I've wanted my entire life. And dealt with my entire life, and the not being able to grieve. We don't learn to grieve. Addicts, we don't learn to grieve, or I don't learn to grieve because I just put substances into my body. And I slowly developed into an IV user, and battled with a heroin addiction for 7 years. I have it on my finger. I've died 3 times, been brought back to life 3 times. My friend group that I know from ages of 13 or even 9 to, now are either dead, in jails and institutions, or sober and working programs of their own. And that's the, insidiousness of this disease. Or insanity, my favorite quote is from Albert Einstein, and it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I'm sure a lot of us have heard this in that room, but the insanity is what drives us to utter chaos. And I've just written a little bit down just to go kind of free cuff or whatever, but getting onto the topic of what I've been asked to talk about, most recently I was at a meeting, work a program with my brothers and sisters that I walk in love and light with and would not be able to stay sober without. And I choose to keep the anonymity of that program that I work because of the power that's held. But I was at a meeting, and I was asked to drive someone home from a sober house, and they had obviously done something after the meeting, and became unresponsive in the car. And I had my friend Andrew in the passenger seat, and we were asking him, "Hey, bud, are you okay? Are you okay?" And slowly his lips started to turn blue, and his face started to turn blue, and we pulled him out of the car, and, as an addict and in recovery, I carry Narcan with me wherever I go. It's in my backpack, it's in my back pocket, it's in my house. All of my friends carry it. It's given out in Portland. You can go to the pharmacies for free and get nasal spray. We're out of nasal spray right now. That's how much we're in need of this stuff right now. And we're actually giving people out in the street injectable Narcan that is supposed to be used in the hospitals. And so this young gentleman was dead and dying on the street. And I hit him with a vial of Narcan. He did not come back to life while my friend Andrew was giving him chest compressions. I gave him another vial of Narcan, and he came back to life. And, this is how bad the disease and this stigma and this epidemic is getting, is we called the paramedics, and we waited for 45 minutes, and they didn't come. And the thing about Narcan is that naltrexone is that it binds to the opioid receptors. It's an opioid antagonist. And it'll bind to the sites and not allow the drug the fentanyl to attach to the receptor sites. Well, the naltrexone has a shorter half-life than fentanyl, and people can fall back out and die after, not being brought to the hospital. So we brought him to the sober house and told the RA there, and left feeling like we had done the best that we could. And now really what's difficult for me to talk about is my experiences with Narcan. The problem as addicts is that, as you speak of, is that we have a lot of shame. And so when we relapse, 70% of addicts that die, IV users that die with time, with sober time, and they go back out and they use once. 83% of those people survive by the CDC if they are administered at least 1 or 2 vials of Narcan. And so, the best thing that I've ever heard from, someone who didn't have very much time was, us as addicts, we always expect to see our relapses coming. We expect to see what's going to happen. We think that we can control things when really our life is out of control, and the only thing we really have control over is what we put in our bodies, and then we lose control, if that makes any sense at all. So I can tell you right now that when you're going in the wrong direction, maybe people believe different things in this room, but when you're going in the wrong direction and you're not operating on a very high vibration in love and light, and you're operating down low in anger and in frustration, I can tell you right now, there is no white light. There is no come to God moment. There is a voice that you hear, "Are you all right?" and then blackness. And that's it. And you wake up on the ground with, hopefully, your life and your wallet and your shoes and your belongings, because people out there on the streets are scrappy. The first time I overdosed, I woke up with no shoes, no hat, no wallet, nothing. The only thing I had on me, not even my belt. I walked back to my apartment barefoot and lied to my girlfriend about the fact that I had gotten mugged on the bus. That's the insanity that we have as addicts, or I have. And this is hard for me to speak with my mother sitting right here, but 119 days ago, I died. And it was because of survival remorse. I had 2 friends who I started to use with in college, overdose and die. And that was 12 for the year and 27 total in the last 3 years of people that I know. Like what someone has told me once is, when you get into the program, when you get sober, you better buy a black suit jacket, because you're going to be going to a lot of funerals and you're also going to be going to a lot of weddings. So there's gratitude and there's also sadness in this. What I can say is that today I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be sober. And I've questioned a lot, like you talk about miles and writing, like this is, just one, of the, almost hundreds of notebooks that I have, that I've filled with my thoughts. And that's what I've found is that connection, writing, being with others, talking with others, being around sober people. That's been a big one for me. Not allowing toxic people into my life. And I know that sounds way easier said than done, but there are boundaries, and it's time to set them. And that's what keeps us alive, is saying, hey, I can't have you in my life right now. I love you. I care for you, or I hate you, and you're toxic, and you need to get out of my life. But the thing that, when I hear, Kathy, not to crosstalk or anything like that, when I hear you bring up the halfway house and to get the job and to go, yeah, it brought me anxiety, and it brought me back out. And, some people need halfway houses. Some people, work their other programs. But I truly believe that, this happens one day at a time. It's a daily reprieve. Tomorrow is not promised. And we have to take this one step at a time. And we can't beat ourselves up. We can't force things. We can't rush things. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And, the hardest thing for me to ever say to someone was my own father, when he was pushing me to get a job not too long ago, was, well, do you want a son with a career and money in his pocket? Possibly. Or do you want to be visiting a tombstone, a gravestone in a couple of years? Because I can tell you right now that without the people that I work with right now and the program that I have in my life and the things that I do every day, I would be with Miles. Because this disease is trying to kill me and make it look like an accident. I'm stuck now, I'm sorry. But, I'm stuck. So I'm going to go to a poem and leave it at that, because I don't know what else to say. I really just feel for all of you in this room. Sorry, I thought I had it pull over up. I will say, while I'm looking this up, Narcan saves lives. South Dakota needs to try to make their state a state that we can walk into a pharmacy and get this stuff and be trained by professionals. It saves lives. It saved my life 3 times, and it saved countless people that I know's lives. And it's given them not just second chances, but third chances, fourth chances, fifth chances, sixth chances. And anyone in this world deserves life, and they deserve whatever chance, however many chances it takes. So this is something that I often read. Come on. Of course, my phone is not going to load. Am I going over time here? All right, I'm going to steal my microphone. All right, thank you. Progress, not perfection. Okay, so this is by Mel Ash. If you are here to read this, think of those who aren't. Pray for them. Good thoughts for those who have lost their minds, love, and years to compulsion, addiction, and fears. Think of their great sacrifice. We recover on the bones of others. Wrap your loving thoughts around them, alone no more. If you are here and recovering, your original shining true self, a moment of silence for those driven mad by the voices and screams of disease-driven dreams. We walk from the night to day on a path made of bones of others. Hold them tightly in the warm arms of your spirit, cold no more. If you are here and attaining freedom, 1,000 bows for those who didn't reach their shore and drowned in a sea of despair, suffering no more. We walk in a freedom past cages made of bones of others. They hand us keys of desperation, quench their burning thirst with the tears of your soul. Calm their cravings, still their minds, grant them peace in the dark and the lonely places below and above the ground. Fill the gaping holes left by their deaths with the immensity of your love. Remember them as you sleep, remember them as you wake. Only a thought is the difference between you and the bones of others. Thank you for giving me the time to speak today.
For I spoke a word, you were singing of me. You've been so good to me. For I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, bites till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. For I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so good to me. I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You've been so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, bites till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. You guys can stand. We'll raise our lights in honor of those who we've lost and those who are fighting currently. I'll sing this one last time with you guys. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Amen. Thank you, guys.
And I want to share one thing. Yesterday, a man gave his testimony and shared it with all of us. And what I realized is that God is always on a rescue mission for each and every one of us. And Cam, I want to say to you, God was on a rescue mission for you too. So So let's put out our candles and come together in prayer. Father, I thank you for tonight, to hear stories, to hear about a rescue mission, to hear about the things that we need to do to reach our community, to come alongside you on that rescue mission. Father, I pray that we never do it outside your hedge of protection and coverage, and yet I would just ask for tonight that we would just have a peaceful rest, to know that things are going to be better tomorrow, that we will celebrate what you've done today. We pray all of this in your Son's holy name. Amen. God bless everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. This was wonderful, and I pray you will invite 3 more people each to come next year. Thanks for everything.